Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode, I'm discussing the 1993 American Western movie Tombstone, as directed by George P. Cosmatos and as based loosely on events in Tombstone, Arizona during the 1880s, including the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral. Now, before I get started with this review, I just wanted to give a big shout out to Docspot Reviews, who requested this review a little while ago. Docspot Reviews is a YouTuber offering some fantastical insight into some of the best Funko Pops around, and indeed some amazing suggestions for some they really should be thinking of releasing. So if you have a chance, please do check out their channel. I will leave a link to a Docs Pop Reviews episode to the end of this review, and will also place a link to their channel in the video description below. And so then, on to Tombstone. The movie chronicles a period in the life of the legendary lawman Wyatt Earp, as played by Kurt Russell, who, along with his two brothers, Virgil and Morgan, as played by Sam Elliott and Bill Paxton respectively, look to retire from law enforcement and make their own fortune, together with their wives, in the prospering town of Tombstone. Catalysed by the discovery of silver, the town of Tombstone is a prospector's dream, full of gambling, vice, liquor, and full of opportunity for the likes of the Earps to make their mark. They soon set forth and rig up their own gambling racket in one of the town's saloons, and start reaping in the benefits that such a gig provides, especially for those with the wily talents of the Earps. However, all of this is threatened by the local gang of bandits and outlaws known as the Cowboys, headed by the unflinchingly ruthless Carey Bill Brokeless, Brokus, as played by Powers Boothe. Joined by their good friend and fellow gunman Doc Holliday, as played by Val Kilmer, the Earps come up against the Cowboys on a number of occasions, until tragedy strikes one night, however, after events spiral out of control, forcing Wyatt and his brothers out of retirement, resulting in an all-or-nothing bloodbath of revenge, retaliation, and retribution. Now, this was one raw and gritty movie for sure, but not in the way that I had maybe expected it to be, I must say. Given those involved and the legend of Wyatt Earp, I did expect this to be an action-packed, gun-slinging, hero-style movie. Good versus bad, and even perhaps the ugly. And although this had those elements, for sure, it was a lot more grounded than that, focused more on the emotional toil suffered by the Earp family, and in some respects their arrogance and self-conceit, but also their friendship and loyalty to each other. It's a gritty movie right from the start. These are desperate times, and the Cowboys are ruthless, holding themselves above the law. At times it is brutal when it wants to be. It doesn't hold back in depicting the savage nature of the Outlands, carrying with it a very heavy burden in bringing a balance between living up to the standards we hold for these legends, against the harsh and often unrelenting truth history often brings. It was an involved movie, and although the lack of gunfights for the most part, especially in the first half of the movie, was not quite what I had expected, it did serve to build tensions between the Earps and the Cowboys, to allow the audience to discover more about the methods of the Earps, using more fear and intimidation tactics to control and coerce than simply pulling their gun at the first sign of trouble, which really kind of added to serve even more to the kind of power, this powder keg of tension that was subtly forming throughout. I enjoyed the way that they depicted the Earps in this, I did. They were not made out to be cuddly, righteous heroes that would always save the day, that always did the right thing. They were arrogant, stubborn, pig-minded, and selfish for the most part. Human. Which certainly blurred the lines between right and wrong, but gave us a unique perspective, perhaps an honest perspective that allowed us to kind of engage and connect with them, not as heroes and legends per se, but as fallible human beings that to some extent made it up as they went along. Quite a refreshing, if somewhat bleaker, outlook and representation. It's a very cinematic movie full of western awe and spectacle, centred around a relatively small locale, which, whilst giving kind of this grand and sweeping feel to the movie, also kind of brings it back to its characters, which is where this is central, with a more homely and focused appeal. There is an amazing cast underpinning the storytelling at work here, with each yielding a very intense and invested series of performances. It's a serious movie, seriously acted, but with conviction that lures you in with its ever-growing intensity. There's some larger-than-life characters depicted here for sure, and everybody gives it their all, especially, notably, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, who absolutely is on fire in the role. Totally injected and immersed in the role throughout. He most certainly knocks it out of the park, 100%, and carries forward, I think, much of the movie's more darker humour. An exuberantly indulgent role that never misses the mark. In fact, all of the main cast provided some much needed weight and decorum to the roles. There's some fantastic character acting at play here, poignantly executed and amazingly considered. Definitely lots of brooding, pouting, piercing looks, absolutely indulgent. The bravado of the Earps is excellently depicted, ruthless and unyielding in their own endeavours and pursuits of riches, definitely delivering a more psychological approach than simply outright gunslinging. The film delves deep into this and is not quite the shoot-'em-up one might expect, providing a very electrified atmosphere, I would say, that looks to ignite the spark leading to the inevitable showdown between the Earps and the cowboys, speaking very much to the finality and the inevitability of it all. It is accompanied by a wondrously western soundtrack as composed by Bruce Broughton, which is especially kind of sweeping and grand, bolstering and kind of complementing the cinematic spectacle that the film becomes. Full of hot desert heat, anger, emotion and madness, and incredibly thematic and engaging as involved within the story as it continues to play out. Overall, this movie plays out brilliantly, presenting some of the Old West's most remembered legends at their most vulnerable, and some amazingly precise, edgy and tensed performances from its cast. Some amazing set pieces and a deep emotional core that looks to kind of bring us a different, more human, raw and unrelenting take on the figures it portrays. Rather than being a simple-minded shooter, the movie builds its characters, carefully investing in them in order to kind of bring us a snapshot of the events that led to one of the most infamous moments in the history of the Wild West, with characters that don't paint the perfect picture we may have expected. It's not all straightforward and fancy shooting. It's a mess, random, human. When it hits hard, but very much ends up being about the emotional payoff that has been built throughout. The dark passion that ultimately results is more than worth the build-up. It's not all black and white. This makes their story about love, life, loss, rather than just simple lawlessness. In the end, they all become legends. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions and other movie-related content. Absolutely loved having you here at SciFirst MovieTalk and definitely love to have you back. Most of all, just thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.